Welcome to the Rob and Jen Go podcast. Real trips, real tips. Let's go. Today we're talking about something that can make or break your cruise experience, choosing the right stateroom. Whether it's your first cruise or your 10th, picking the right cabin isn't always as simple as inside or balcony. There are locations, layouts, and little details that can make a big difference in how much you enjoy your trip. So today we're breaking it all down for you so you can book smarter and cruise better. Let's be honest, when we booked our first cruise with our kids, we had no idea how important the room actually was. So we thought, were we just sleeping there? And we booked what we thought seemed like a good deal. So the good deal for us with our kids was an ocean view where we had a queen-size bed for the two of us, and then they had two of those bunk beds that came out of the ceiling.
Yeah, and so if you've never been on a cruise, like we hadn't at the time, you don't really know, and this was many years ago before they had all the sophisticated cruise layout, deck plans and maps and everything online to research. So you kind of figure it says it's going to sleep 4 people, and you have one bed and 2 bunks, as Jen said, that drop out of the ceiling. It was comfy, but very cozy.
It was a good thing. It was a good thing our kids were small.
It was a good thing the kids were small, yeah, so. But, it may be tight quarters in some cases, but it really is a good way to get a family of 4 on board for, a reasonable price.
Yeah, it really is. And I think today with YouTube and YouTube videos, a lot of people post stateroom layouts. They'll post walkthroughs of staterooms so you get an idea of what a stateroom on a particular ship might look like before you get on. We do. We also have those on our website. So if you're looking for a Royal Caribbean stateroom, we've got everything from inside promenades, not ocean views, but balconies and suites on our website. So my first recommendation would be go out and do a little bit of research and see what the rooms look like before you book. That might help. And then consider location.
Yeah, it turns out that I think that's probably more important a lot of times than the actual cabin that you get. Because you don't really realize if you're subject to motion sickness, choosing a room that's closer to the forward or the rear of the ship is going to get you a lot more motion versus getting something that's a little more central. And also, if you choose the further back or forward you choose, the further you are away from the elevators and all the main activities. So you're going to set yourself up for a lot of extra steps. So that could be a good thing, if you like to get your exercise. But we've had some cabins off the rear of the ship before, and if you forget something in your room, you just throw your hands up in the air. You're like, who's taking the mile trek back to the room to get it? Or do we really need that after all?
Yeah, and so that is something to consider. The sunset rooms is what they call them on the very back of the ship. They've got great views. We've enjoyed a lot of them over the years, but they are really far away from everything. And then you have to be careful, particularly with some of those, depending on how much noise you're willing to tolerate.
Yeah, and that's
because on the back of the boat, on a lot of Royal Caribbean ships, there are things like the basketball court and pickleball. And if you've got a room right underneath, the deck underneath all of that activity, sometimes that can be really tough if you're noise sensitive.
Yeah, so it's really important to consider not only the location forward to rear on the ship, but the location up and down and what decks are above and below you that people don't really consider. Some people might just say, hey, this is a good one. It's up on deck 10 or deck 11, and we like to be up on the top, and it's closer to everything, but it's closer to everything. So if you're on deck 10 and you're right underneath the windjammer, I think I saw somebody post the other day, about 6 a.m. the chair sliding starts. So you're gonna have a built-in alarm clock for when the buffet gets going, and you hear the cattle call taking place right above your room. You might not need an alarm clock. That'll just wake you up on its own.
But one of the trade-offs for a little bit of noise is price.
Yes.
And sometimes those are less expensive rooms because the cruise line knows those are less desirable rooms. So in order to get everybody on a ship and to get the ship full, they'll discount those rooms sometime. So if you're looking for good value for your money, those can be rooms that hold a lot of value for people.
Yeah. And another thing, even if you decide that the balcony is for you, so you can have your own private space outside, which is really nice, you have to consider that some of them are obstructed view balconies. So you have to think about
That's a
where
good
they
point.
put the lifeboats, where they put, they have a lot of ladders and infrastructure on the side of the ship to help with maintaining the ship. And sometimes you have to pay attention to which cabin specifically that you have, which balcony cabin, and what the views are going to be like outside. So a good indicator a lot of times is if you see two rooms that seem to be the same, the two balconies, and you see one that's significantly reduced price, then you want to probably double check and make sure it's not like an obstructed view. And sometimes if you're not so worried about it and you want to save some money, it's a good way to do that as well.
Yeah. Then I think the other consideration too when selecting a room is a connecting room. And if you don't need a connecting room, but those are what are available, know that sometimes there is a little bit of noise that comes through those connecting doors. They're not as solid as a solid wall. So that may have a part too if you're noise sensitive that you would want to take into consideration, and those are really noted on the deck plans. I think Royal Caribbean does a great job of pointing out what's a connecting room with the arrows on the deck plan, so you know exactly which one.
They do. And again, it's kind of like we said when we first started cruising, we didn't have all the, we weren't able to take advantage of all the technology and all the information that's available on the internet these days. But now they do a really good job of showing you the deck plans. And if you read the keys, it'll tell you whether it's a 3-person or 4-person capable room, whether it's got a connecting room to it, whether there's an obstruction. So there's really a lot of good information to help you make that selection. I would say that the flip side of the connecting room is we see a lot of families that maybe have 3 or 4 kids along and you can't get quite 5 or 6 people in one room. A really good option in a connecting room is to book those 2 rooms that are next to each other. And then because you have to always have one adult booked in a room, you'll see some families where the husband and 2 kids will book one room and the wife and 2 kids will book the other room. And then when it comes time to actually, get into your room and occupy it, they'll put all the kids in the one room and the adults will take the other room. So it just has to be booked with an adult in the room. So
Yeah, that's a really good point as well. So as we look back, we've really focused on, for us, having the right deck. I think the right deck and the right location is really important to us. So before I pick up the phone and call, I always go out to Rob's point, do my research, figure out what's available, figure out what deck has which, are we forward, are we mid, are we aft, understanding, what's still left, and then going from there. So favorite deck, but I would also say too, we look for favorite balconies.
yeah. So depending on the ship design, Royal Caribbean, a lot of the ships that we've been on have what is commonly referred to as a bump out area. So a part of the ship deck design where instead of just being like straight parallel all the way down, they had the how can I explain this? The decks expand out over the water a little bit. So if you get a balcony room in one of those bump out areas, you get a little bit of a larger balcony and you get something more interesting to look. You can look down the side of the ship to maybe see a little bit of the wake that's created by the ship and not just straight out into the ocean. So sometimes it can, be a little bit better, depending on, not every balcony room is the same. So
No, and that's a really good point. We do like to stay on the bump out because it does, get, to Rob's point, gives you a better view. and then it gives us more space. So instead of just having a table and two chairs, for instance, you might end up with a table, two chairs, and one or two loungers.
Yeah.
So it gives you a little bit of variety as you're sitting outside if you are one that enjoys the balcony. For some people, it doesn't matter. They're not staying in the room or staying on a balcony isn't of interest to them. So that might not matter. But for some people that want to enjoy a cocktail outside at sunset or coffee in the morning at sunrise, looking at how important a balcony is can really make or break a stateroom as well.
Yeah. So I think I think it might be a little obvious at this point. We lean towards the balconies. We sort of favor the balconies. Our choice, but
So we've got some tips for choosing the right stateroom, and the first one is location matters more than you think. We've talked a little bit about this midship, mid-deck, where it's convenient, where it's not.
yeah, I was gonna just expanding on that because we have talked about that a bit already. The For instance, one of our favorite ships, Navigator of the Seas, we always want to choose sort of mid between forward and aft. But we tend to take rooms towards the elevator that are towards the rear because one of our favorite spots is Playmakers. And Playmakers is on deck 5 towards in the rear half of the midship. So if we're looking for a room, we want to maybe be closer to those elevators because we know that's where we'll frequent more often. So it's not only just a matter of do you want midship, but do you want mid forward or mid aft, depending on where you're going to find yourself more frequently.
Yeah. Number 2, look what's above and below your cabin, just as we talked about, whether you are under the pool, above the theater, above a nightclub, keep in mind what is around you. And then also keep in mind too where the kids' activities are, because usually parents will, with smaller kids, will try to find rooms that are closer to those activities. So if you're not traveling with children or you have older children and that's not of interest to you, just keep that in mind as well. Number 3, balcony versus inside. And really, this is a style preference. Our kids travel on inside rooms, inside promenades. Rob and I are, honestly, we're a little claustrophobic. So we do not do the inside. We always try to get to a balcony or a suite, something where we can see outside, be outside. Inside rooms hold great value, and I think the kids just prefer that because they're not in their room a whole lot. But that's we've been in those.
Yeah.
And that I think isn't for us, but it is for a lot of people. And they're very value add.
Yeah, and I think the inside promenade view is an interesting feature of a lot of the Royal Caribbean ships now that have promenades, as opposed to the, for instance, we're on Serenade right now, which has the old style Centrum from early 2000s. Well, somewhere on the mid 2000s, they changed from the central, just a circular Centrum, and they've made the Royal Promenades or Esplanades, where now the whole center of the ship is kind of an open shopping area, and the first decks, usually like 4 through 7, have rooms that will face, have a window that faces that promenade. So as opposed to an ocean view or an interior where you don't have any windows, at least this sort of affords you a much better view.
Yeah, but one thing to keep in mind with those promenades are the noise. Again,
Yes.
if you're noise sensitive, because that's where all of the parties are
That is true.
and a lot of the parades and things. So those can get a little noisy.
Yeah, so if you don't have disco fever on 70s night and you're trying to get some sleep, you might that might not be the best option for you.
I agree. Number 4, don't overlook cabin layout. Some ships have, and classes of ships, I guess I would say, have different layouts, whether it's where the bed is placed, how much storage you have, and then what kind of bathroom you have. If you are in an inside, an ocean view, or balcony rooms, those tend to all have a very similar bathroom layout with a stand-up shower, single sink, in a pretty, what I would consider pretty small footprint for a bathroom. Once you get into a junior suite, that's where you'll find your tubs. So if you are a person that would prefer a tub over a stand-up shower, then you might want to consider jumping up to a junior suite. And then all of your others, all of grand suite, one bedrooms, those have larger bathrooms, and on some of the newer ships, they even have two sinks as opposed to one.
Yeah, and was it the quantum class that we were just on that had that bath and a half set up?
It
That was
was.
that was really an interesting one we hadn't seen before, but was really nice to be able to have, two places for people to get ready in the morning.
Yeah, that was great. I really enjoyed that as well. Number 5, book early for better choices. And again, ships fill up these days. They're all sold out. It's very hard to find last minute deals because we've got so many first time cruisers, which is absolutely terrific, but they fill up fast. So if you're planning a trip and you want to have your choice, book early. That would be our advice.
Yeah, and that reminds me as well, the caveat, if you see a lot of times a guaranteed room, that means that you're going to pick a class of room, but the ship is going to pick where that room is going to be, and they'll pick it based on what's selling, what's not selling. So you're going to end up with not a choice, and it might not be the best location because it's going to be what they have left when they go to assign rooms. Now, Royal has made an interesting change where for an incremental fee that's a little less than picking your room outright, you can actually pick your guaranteed room after you booked a guaranteed stay. But if you're particular about where you want to have your cabin, we always recommend you just book early and then you pick the cabin that you want. It's worth a couple extra bucks versus taking a guarantee.
Yeah, well, but if you're on a budget,
If you're on a budget, yes,
a guarantee is a great way to go
it is.
because you're getting a class of room at a reduced rate.
Just don't be the guy that's complaining later to the restaurant manager that you keep getting assigned terrible guarantee rooms.
Yes, that was an experience we had. So, quick fire question for you. So, are we talking, let's go with our own experience. So, prefer balcony or junior suite?
I do like the junior suite. It's a little bit extra room. A lot of times the balcony's bigger. And the big thing is that it's an incremental, on the Royal Caribbean, it's an incremental price increase and you can get double points. So for us that are, we're trying to increase our loyalty status, the greatest thing for me is the junior suite. You get a coffee maker, you get a little bit extra room, and you get double points for not having to pay for an entire extra cruise. So
Well, you get double service as well. So you
that's true.
get cabin steward in the morning and in the evening, which if you're looking for your room to be cleaned twice a day, then you have to consider that as a value add and whether or not that makes sense for you. And then, we've done both. We've done, as we said, an ocean view room, balcony rooms, junior suites, grand suites, one bedrooms. We've done a pretty wide variety, but we'd like to hear from you. Tell us which kind of cabin stateroom you prefer. And certainly when we're out and about on our next cruises coming up, we can make sure we snap some photos and put them in our gallery because I know people are most interested a lot of times, and we get a lot of questions about staterooms and what do staterooms look like. And I know when we were on a cruise a couple of months ago, somebody was in a little bit of a panic on, I think Facebook maybe it was, and they were asking for a very specific stateroom on the ship we were on. Well, we weren't in that room, but we were down the hall, and we knew that our room had the same configuration as the room they were looking for. So we did a quick walkthrough of our room and then DM'd it to them so they could see what they were getting into. Because sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and you really want to know.
Yeah, and again, back to the way technology is these days. So many people are posting videos about their staterooms. And they tag it with all the right information. It's really gotten easy to just look up your stateroom number. So if you're looking and you're planning a trip, you've got your booking, and you're looking through the deck plans and you're trying to figure out, oh, this looks like it may be good. Just do a quick search on that specific boat, that stateroom, And chances are you're going to get a good little preview of what that room is going to be like, so you know what to expect.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up here, our feeling is if you're choosing the right stateroom, it might not seem like a big deal at first, but it can really shape your entire cruise experience from very happy to maybe not so happy.
Yeah.
From location to layout, balcony versus inside, a few smart choices can mean better sleep, less stress, and more enjoyment on board. If you found this helpful, be sure to follow along on all of our social channels for more cruise tips and check out our Patreon site for exclusive guides, including our cruise planning resources. So from Rob and Jen,
Safe travels.
and see you on board.